Le Seigneur soit avec vous.
Et avec ton esprit.
Prions le Seigneur. Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, que ton nom soit sanctifié, que ton règne vienne, que ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain de ce jour. Pardonne-nous nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons aussi à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous soumets pas à la tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car c'est à toi qu'appartiennent le règne, la puissance et la gloire, dans les siècles des siècles. Amen. Les réponses B. Sauve ton peuple, Seigneur, et bénis ton héritage.
Veille sur lui, porte-le à jamais.
Chaque jour nous te bénirons.
Nous louerons ton nom, toujours et à jamais.
Garde-nous en ce jour de tout péché.
Pitié pour nous, Seigneur, pitié pour nous.
Que ton amour, Seigneur, soit sur nous.
Comme notre espoir est en toi.
En toi, Seigneur, notre espérance.
Nous ne serons jamais déçus.
Ô Dieu, ta providence infaillible ordonne toutes choses au ciel et sur la terre. Nous t'en prions, écarte de nous tout ce qui peut nous nuire, et donne-nous ce qui nous est salutaire. Par Jésus-Christ notre Seigneur, qui vit et règne avec toi et le Saint Esprit, un seul Dieu dans les siècles des siècles. Amen. Dieu éternel et tout-puissant, qui nous a fait parvenir à ce jour nouveau, protège-nous par ta puissance, pour que nos cœurs ne s'abandonnent pas au péché, mais surmontent les difficultés. Et dans tout ce que nous entreprenons, conduis-nous à accomplir ta volonté. Par Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur. Amen.
Amen.
Dieu, notre Père, dans l'admirable sacrement de l'Eucharistie, ton Fils Jésus-Christ nous a laissé le mémorial de sa passion. Donne-nous de vénérer, d'un si grand amour, le mystère de son corps et de son sang, que nous puissions éprouver sans cesse le fruit de sa rédemption. Lui qui vit et règne avec toi et le Saint-Esprit, un seul Dieu dans les siècles des siècles. Amen. Que ton Saint-Esprit habite en nous, Dieu Tout-Puissant, qui nous illumine et nous fortifie pour te servir. Par Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui vit et règne avec toi dans l'unité du Saint-Esprit, un seul Dieu, maintenant et toujours. Amen. Nous prions ce matin pour notre petite Église française du Saint-Esprit, pour tous nos membres et nos fidèles. Que Dieu nous garde entre ses mains, sains et saufs, qui nous donne la paix et nous montre le chemin à suivre pendant ces temps difficiles. Nous prions pour notre ville de New York, pour toute ville et toute communauté qui passe par la violence en ce moment. Que Dieu fortifie ceux qui manifestent pour l'égalité et la justice. Que Dieu protège et restreint ceux qui imposent l'ordre. Que la voix de ceux qui cherchent la justice soit non seulement entendue, mais mène à l'action. Nous prions pour tous ceux qui ont besoin de nos prières en ce moment, pour tous ceux qui souffrent, pour tous ceux qui sont malades, tous ceux qui ont perdu leur travail et qui ont peur du futur. Nous prions tout spécialement pour Suzanne et Gary, pour Serge et Jean. Nous prions pour le rétablissement de Marjorie et de Linda. Nous rendons grâce à Dieu pour tous ceux que nous aimons et que nous ne voyons plus. Faisons mémoire aujourd'hui tout spécialement de Hugo, de Herndon et de Rush. Et nous prions pour nous-mêmes et pour tous ceux qui nous sont chers. Ô Dieu, toi qui nous as liés les uns aux autres dans une même existence, accorde-nous, quand nous luttons pour faire triompher la justice et la vérité, de nous opposer aux autres sans haine ni rancune, et de travailler ensemble avec patience et respect. Par Jésus le Christ, notre Seigneur. Amen. Page 62 du livre de la prière commune. Page 62 of the Book of Common Prayer. Dieu éternel et tout-puissant, dont l'Esprit sanctifie et gouverne le corps entier du peuple fidèle, exauce les prières que nous t'adressons pour tous les membres de ta sainte Église, que chacun d'eux, selon sa vocation et son ministère, te serve avec fidélité, par Jésus le Christ, notre Seigneur. Amen. Bénissons le Seigneur.
Nous rendons grâce à Dieu.
La grâce de Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, l'amour de Dieu le Père et la communion de l'Esprit Saint soient toujours avec nous. Amen. Joyce, tu veux dire bonjour à tout le monde, expliquer un peu de ce qui s'est passé?
Bien sûr.
Et tu as une lecture à faire aussi.
Exactement.
Merci.
La lecture en même temps.
Merci. Super.
Oui. Fortunately, Fred came down as an angel from the office upstairs and he fixed the problem, but the computer crashed suddenly, like Bruce screen. Bad face. Heather has a little face. So we had to restart everything, and we're probably going to have to do something with the internet or something like this, because there is some problem with the data, apparently, Fred said. Yes, I'm going to do a small reading from A Season for the Spirit by Martin Smith. Nigel has already read a couple of prayers and meditations from this book. There was one that we found particularly interesting for today. You always have the poor with you. Religious experiences come thick and fast in the street of New York City. I remember having to turn into St. Thomas Fifth Avenue one cold day in Lent just to ask myself, what I have just done. I had been rushing along close behind a woman in a sable cart. She stepped too deftly over an obstruction on the pavement. Just as deftly, so did I. It was a homeless man, one of tens of thousands, keeping warm over a grating. This is what you do in Manhattan. You learn to step over the poor. I had a religious experience of our irreligion. The poor are always with us. The question is whether we are with the poor. Congratulations to the poor, proclaimed Jesus in what we call the Beatitudes, a pious term which helps us muffle their impact. But Jesus does not congratulate the poor for accepting their lot and dreaming of heaven. The poor he congratulates are like the widow in his parable who would not take no for an answer in her quest for justice. Jesus issues congratulations not for resignation, but for hunger and thirst for righteousness, that is, God's righteousness, his justice which sets wrongs right. The poor are happy, who yearns for justice, which will restore to them the share of power, work, food, shelter, and culture which has been denied them. They can begin to call themselves happy because yearning is God's yearning. With and in them, God yearns for right to prevail. It is not possible to be with God unless we are with God with the poor. The equation is strict. Camels cannot get through the eye of a needle. The rich find it almost impossible to enter the realm of God, which is spreading through the announcing of good news to the poor. They exclude themselves, not because wealth is necessarily corrupting. Many rich people are fine, refined, and honorable, but because they cannot be with, that is, on the same side as, the poor. The only way they could cross over to the side of the poor where God is would be by accepting that the destitution of the millions is the result of systemic injustice rather than abstract fate or individual fickleness, and being conscripted in the divine struggle against it. The maintenance of wealth depends on strong mechanisms of dissociation from the needy and forceful convictions that their claims are invalid or their aspirations hopeless. It is disturbing to realize that one does not have actually to be rich oneself to use this same mechanism and harbor these convictions. Few people wear sables, but many follow in their footsteps. Innumerable people who are not well off at all embrace the attitudes which, according to Jesus, damn those who hold them. We can hardly call Lent a season for the spirit of truth if we tried to defend our attitudes to poverty from the Spirit's probing. How honest can I allow myself to be? Here, with the issue of my solidarity with the poor, I will probably have to experience the greatest humbling of my complacency. One by one, I have to seize hold of the lies I used to deny the claim of the poor. In public, I repudiate the religion of pie in the sky when you die. Deep within, I console myself with the thought that the millions who know only grinding toil will be raised into the life of God in heaven. My wonder at that, and it is true and consoling, slides into the space where I am looking for an excuse for doing nothing about poverty. I take refuge in feelings of impotence. The problems are systemic, vast. The changes necessary, so revolutionary. The resistances, so colossal. While I analyze and cultivate my pious hopelessness, I can keep my hand over my wallet. Sometimes, though I would not dare to say it out loud, I reckon that poverty is actually the human condition and will never change. There are strata of affluence, and I happen to be in one of them. Real culture can only flourish here, and the redistribution of wealth would drain the lifeblood from it. Therefore, the claims of the poor must be resisted, though liberal appearances must be maintained and sympathetic noises made about the scandal of homelessness, world hunger, and of course, I include them in my intercessions. With such a falsehood, I struggle against the spirit to keep out of solidarity with the poor. Even if I were to rid myself of these lies, one fundamental barrier could still hold me back. True solidarity with the poor can never happen if I deny the poverty within myself. I have to hear the beatitude spoken to the poor within me. And the sure sign that the poor within me are being allowed to speak is as if I am praying out of my need and voicing my dependence on God. Jesus' teaching about prayer is disconcertingly focused on asking, seeking, knocking. His prime concern was that everyone should find that place within themselves in which they know their need of daily bread, mercy, protection from trials which would break them, deliverance from evil, and in and beyond these things, simply God. It has now ceased to surprise me how difficult most people find it to be needy with God. Sometimes men and women tell me that they rarely pray for themselves and think a few of them want me to include that they are advanced in unselfishness. But, usually in men, it is soul-endangering evasion, or, usually in women, diseased self-effacement. It is easier to intercede for others and pray for just causes than it is to be in God's presence a poor man or woman who is going to die, to be honest about one dreads on needs. When was the last time you took soundings into the places of your own needs and expressed them to Jesus, and with Jesus to the Father? How can we enter into the experience of the poor if we flatly deny that there are any poor in our hearts? How can we hear the voices of the poor at home and throughout the world if we condemn the poor selves of the self to silence and vainly try to draw God's attention away from our nakedness with a display of devotion and altruistic intercessions? Spirit who anointed Jesus to proclaim good news to the poor, let him speak words of welcome to the poor within me, for I am afraid of my own poverty. Unless you draw me to the place of poverty in my heart and help me surrender my mechanism of denial, I will certainly continue to block my ears to the voice of the poor. Let me recognize Christ in the poor, not only the poor out there, but the poor in here, and do them justice.
Merci, Joris. Il y aura à midi et quart la Sainte Communion, et si vous voulez vous joindre à nous pour l'étude ce soir, il faut tout simplement envoyer un message à Fred, à Saint Esprit, contact at saintesprit.org. Join us a little later if you like for our communion service at 12:15. This evening we have an evening prayer at 6 o'clock. That's going to be followed by our study group. If you would like to join that study group, just send a little email along to Fred at contact@saintesprit.org. This evening's study is going to be about the spirituality of the Reformers and a very interesting side of that spirituality that has been much neglected and which Joyce has done a great deal of research into too. And that is the connection between the spirituality of the Reformers and nature, an environmental theology, the connectedness of things, that it's possible to have a spirituality with a scientific mindset. What would that look like, and how can we achieve that for ourselves? And what have those Reformers got to teach us about that? Instead of just listening to them talk about justification and all of those subjects that can sometimes sound a little stale, let's look at their spirituality for once and see how profoundly changing that can be and how contemporary it can sound for us. So until then, may God bless your day, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.